So on this very last set of homeworks for the year, I did something different. I gave you a sheet of paper that had your homework assignments on it that looked like this. You had 3 sections and you were supposed to do 3 problems from each section, 4 through 8 on the first one, 4 through 8 on the second one, and then I wrote down 4 through 8 for the last one. I made a correction. There is no 4 through 8 for this one, so it was supposed to be 10 through 14 on the last section. So I want to do one problem from each of these sections. From the first section, I'll do number 6, which is 2m squared minus 42 equals to 8. And these problem types are asked to solve the equation, solve the quadratic. And we do that by isolating the variable. So we're going to isolate the m by first getting rid of this negative 42. So I want to get rid of the 42, or negative 42, by adding 42 to both sides, which is going to yield a 2m squared equals to a 50. Terrific. But then I want to get rid of this 2 over here. It's been multiplied. I'm going to divide both sides by 2, which is going to net me an m squared equals to a 25. Then to get rid of the power of 2, I'm going to do the opposite of a power of 2. I'm going to square root the m squared. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side as well. Now thankfully, the 25 is a perfect square. It's essentially a 5 squared. So, and square roots will cancel out anything that's a power of 2. So over here we're going to have the power of 2 and the square root get canceled. Over here we're going to have the power root and the square root get canceled. So eventually you're left with m equals to 5, which is actually m equals to plus minus 5, because both the positive and the negative outcome will work here. So m equals to plus minus, and yes, you have to designate that. I almost forgot. So if you either put in a positive or negative 5 into the m over here, it'll make this particular problem true, that equation true. Good. Next we're going to do a problem from the middle set. So a problem from this set, and I'm going to do problem number 8. That's problem number 8. Before we get any further, I'm going to write down right beneath it the standard form of a quadratic function. So that's the standard form of a quadratic function. Something times x squared plus something times, and that's supposed to be an x. Sorry, that's x. So something times the middle term, the x, and then something that's all by itself. Now in our problem we're missing that last part. We're missing the c. So how do we find c? Well, there's a formula that goes like this. C equals to b, which is this b right here, or the middle term in that problem, divided by 2, then all taken to the second power. Alright, so in this case the b is a 5. So that's our b. And according to the formula, I'm going to plug in the 5 over here. So c, our missing term, the c here, is going to equal to the 5 that comes from here. So let me highlight it. That's going to be divided by 2, and then everything's going to be taken to the second power. Now of course you can divide 5 by 2, get 2.5, and then try to square that, but that's messy. Instead, just square the entire fraction, which means you're going to get 25 over 4. So I squared the 5, so I distributed this into both, and then I squared the 5, and then I squared the 2 separately. So c is now 25 over 4. So to finish the problem off, I'm simply going to substitute that value in for c. So you're going to get x squared plus 5x plus 25 over 4, and you are done. So that's it for that particular problem. So that's number 8 on that middle problem set. The last problem I'll do from the very last problem set over here. I'm going to do 14. So you were supposed to do 10, 12, and 14. I'll do 14, which should be the hardest problem. And this one you're supposed to use the quadratic formula. So I'll write up the quadratic formula right over here. So x equals to negative b and then it's going to be plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Terrific. So that's looks like easy. I'm kidding, maybe not so much, but the whole idea is find your a, find your b, and then find your c. So I'm going to write out the standard form of the quadratic equation again. It's ax squared plus b times x plus c. So our job is to find a, to find b, and then to find c. Well, the a is whatever in front of the x squared in this case, or whatever the variable is. So in front of the n squared here we have the -2. That's our a. The b is whatever's in front of the middle term, that middle variable. In this case it's a -5. And the c is, well, right here, whatever's all by itself. So that's a +16. Now that we have those values, we are going to go ahead and plug those in into the quadratic equation. So it's going to look like this. X equals 2. Instead of b, we're going to write down our -5. So it's a -5 plus minus. Instead of the b squared, we're going to write down -5 squared minus 4 times, instead of a, we're going to write down -2. And instead of c, we're going to write down a +16. And 2 times, and instead of a, we're going to write down -2. So just to add some color to that, so this is my value for a, which then reappears right here, and it also reappears right here. My value for b is this one right here, which then of course reappears here, and then it reappears here. And then my value for c, it appears only once, this one right here, and it reappears right here. So I just simply substituted my numbers in from here into the quadratic equation. And then all you have to do is solve the quadratic equation, so crunch your numbers. So x is going to equal to negative times -5, that's a +5, plus minus, underneath the root, -5 squared, that's a 25, a +25, -5 times -5 is +25. The -4 times -2 is a +8. +8 times 16 is 128, so it's going to be plus 128 if my math is correct. All over 2 times -2 is a -4. Alright, so let's do some more simplification. So we have again 5 plus minus, underneath the root we have 25 plus a 128, which is going to yield for us 153 all over a -4. And I'm trying to think if there's something we can do to this root of 153 to simplify it in some ways, and nothing's coming to my mind right now, and there might be some way to simplify that, but as far as I'm concerned, that's a good enough of an answer. So if you gave me that on the quiz and or the test, I would be more than happy with that particular solution. So right over here, that's your answer, and I'm perfectly happy if you give me that. Alright, so if there are any more questions, just ask me in class tomorrow, or catch me during lunch, before school, after school, before the quiz and or the test, and I'll more than gladly help you out. So thank you very much.